lighthouse keeper's dream. On a quiet island where the ocean meets the sky, there stands an old lighthouse painted white as fresh snow. Its keeper, an elderly woman named Clara, has tended its light for more years than she can count. Each evening, as the sun melts into the horizon like honey dripping from a spoon, Clara climbs the spiral stairs to light the beacon that guides ships safely home. Tonight, the sea is unusually calm. The waves whisper secrets to the shore in a rhythm as steady as a sleeping heart. Clara sits in her comfortable chair by the lighthouse window, watching the moon paint a silver path across the water. The light above her head turns slowly, casting gentle shadows that dance like old friends around the room. As Clara's eyelids grow heavy, she begins to dream while still awake. In her dream, she sees a magnificent garden floating on the ocean's surface. Lavender and chamomile bloom in endless rows, their sweet fragrance carried on the salt-tinged breeze. Butterflies with wings like stained glass windows flutter from flower to flower, their movements creating tiny bells that chime in harmony with the waves. In this floating garden, time moves differently. The flowers glow with their own soft light, pulsing gently like distant stars. Clara finds herself walking barefoot along paths made of smooth sea glass, each step creating ripples of color that spread outward in perfect circles. The lighthouse beam above rotates peacefully, now illuminating not just the sea, but this magical garden of dreams. A family of luminescent whales surfaces nearby, their songs deep and melodious. They seem to be humming an ancient lullaby that Clara remembers from childhood, though she cannot recall who first sang it to her. The melody wraps around her like a warm blanket, and she feels herself becoming lighter, as if she too might float upon the gentle waves. Small boats made of leaves drift past, each one carrying a sleeping animal. A fox curled into a copper ball, a rabbit with ears soft as clouds, an owl with feathers that shimmer like moonbeams. They sail by peacefully, heading toward a distant shore where dreams are stored like treasures in an endless library. Clara notices that her lighthouse has transformed. Instead of casting a single beam, it now sends out thousands of gentle lights, each one a wish for peaceful sleep. These lights dance across the water, touching every wave, every floating flower, every dreaming creature. They carry messages of rest and comfort to anyone who might be watching from afar. The ocean begins to sing, not with the crash of waves, but with a low, humming melody that seems to come from the water itself. It's the sound of the earth breathing, of tides that have moved for millions of years, of ancient peace that flows through everything. Clara feels this rhythm in her chest, synchronizing with her own breath, until she can no longer tell where the ocean ends and she begins. Above, the stars begin their nightly descent, each one trailing ribbons of silver light as they lower themselves toward the water. They don't fall, they float, like dandelion seeds on a summer breeze, settling gently onto the surface of the sea. Soon, the entire ocean sparkles with fallen stars, each one pulsing with a soft, sleepy light. Clara realizes that she is no longer just the lighthouse keeper, but the guardian of all sleep, all dreams, all peaceful rest. Her lighthouse beam has become a river of golden light that flows to every bedroom, every pillow, every person who needs the gift of gentle slumber. She sends her light across oceans and continents, through windows and over rooftops, carrying the whispered promise that morning will come. But for now, there is only rest. The floating garden begins to drift closer to shore, and Clara sees that it's heading toward a small cove where the water is so still it might be made of glass. Here, the moon has left pools of liquid silver in the sand, and each pool reflects not the night sky, but peaceful dreams yet to be dreamed. As the garden settles into this quiet cove, Clara finds herself back in her lighthouse chair, though whether she is awake or asleep, she cannot say. Perhaps it doesn't matter. The lighthouse beam continues its gentle rotation. The waves continue their whispered lullaby. And somewhere in the distance, a night bird calls once, softly, as if to say that all is well, all is peaceful, all is exactly as it should be. The last thing Clara sees before sleep takes her completely is a small sailboat made of moonlight, carrying a cargo of dreams toward the morning. It moves without wind, guided only by hope and the gentle current of night itself. And in that moment, she knows that everyone who hears this story will find their own boat of dreams, their own peaceful island, their own light to guide them safely through the night. Sleep comes like a tide, gentle and inevitable, washing over everything with the soft sound of waves meeting shore. And in that sleep, all is calm, all is bright, all is perfectly, peacefully still. The end, rest well. The sleepy train to dreamland. Every night at 9:30, a special train arrives at the station at the end of your street. You cannot see it with your eyes, but if you listen carefully as you lie in bed, you might hear its gentle whistle calling softly in the distance. This is the sleepy train, and it travels to the most peaceful place in all the world. The train is painted deep blue like the evening sky, with golden stars dotted along its sides. Its windows glow with warm, honey-colored light, and soft music plays from somewhere inside. The conductor is a kind old bear wearing a purple hat and a gentle smile. He checks his pocket watch and nods, knowing that soon sleepy passengers will begin to arrive. Tonight, you find yourself walking down a path made of smooth white stones. Each stone glows softly under your bare feet, warm and comfortable. The path leads through a meadow filled with sleepy flowers that close their petals as you pass. Night birds sing quiet lullabies from the branches of dreaming trees, their leaves rustling like whispered secrets. At the end of the path, you see the train waiting patiently. Steam rises from its chimney in perfect rings that float up toward the stars. The bear conductor tips his hat, and welcomes you aboard with a voice as warm as hot chocolate on a winter evening. You climb the 3 small steps and find yourself inside the most comfortable train car you have ever seen. The seats are made of clouds, soft and bouncy, and perfectly shaped for resting. Blankets woven from moonbeams are folded neatly on each seat, and tiny reading lights, shaped like fireflies, provide just enough glow to see. Other passengers are already settling in for the journey. A sleepy rabbit clutches a pillow made of dandelion fluff. A drowsy fox curls up with his bushy tail wrapped around him like a scarf. As the train begins to move, it rocks gently from side to side, like a cradle being pushed by invisible hands. The wheels on the tracks make a rhythm that sounds like a heartbeat, steady and soothing. Through the windows, you watch the countryside roll by slowly, peacefully. First, you pass through the valley of quiet waters, where streams flow backward and upward, carrying fallen leaves back to their trees. The water makes no sound as it flows, creating perfect silence that fills your ears like the softest music. Deer with silver antlers pause to watch the train pass, then bow their heads in a gentle goodnight. Next, the train travels through the forest of sleeping trees. Here, every tree leans against its neighbor, all of them resting together like old friends. Their branches are heavy with dreams instead of fruit, and these dreams glow like lanterns, casting rainbow colors across the forest floor. Some dreams are shaped like butterflies, others like shooting stars, and a few look like birthday wishes floating on the wind. The train continues its peaceful journey through the meadow of yawning flowers. Each flower here opens and closes slowly, like they are yawning before bedtime. As they yawn, they release tiny sparkles into the air that smell like lavender and fresh rain. The sparkles float through the train windows and settle on your shoulders like fairy dust, making you feel even more relaxed and sleepy. As you travel deeper into the night, the train passes through the village of gentle sounds. Here, wind chimes made of seashells hang from every doorway, creating soft music that blends with the train's rhythm. Rocking chairs on front porches move slowly back and forth, though no one sits in them. They rock in time with your breathing, which has become slow and deep. The conductor bear walks through the train car, checking on each passenger. He adjusts blankets and fluffs pillows with care. When he reaches your seat, he speaks in a voice like distant thunder, warm and comforting. He tells you that you are almost at your destination, the place where the best dreams live. Through the window, you begin to see the lights of Dreamland Station. It looks like a castle made of stars, with towers that stretch up into the clouds. Gardens surround the station, filled with flowers that bloom only at night. These flowers sing instead of making fragrance, their voices joining together in the most beautiful lullaby ever heard. The train slows down gradually, gently, until it comes to a complete stop with a soft sigh of steam. The conductor bear opens the doors and helps each passenger step down onto the platform. The platform is made of the same glowing stones as the path, but these stones pulse gently with your heartbeat, welcoming you to this magical place. In dreamland, everything moves slowly and peacefully. Clouds drift lower here, close enough to touch, and they feel like cotton candy, but smell like your favorite bedtime story. Rivers flow in slow motion, their water clear as crystal and warm as a summer day. Fish made of starlight swim lazily upstream, their scales leaving trails of silver light in the water. You find a perfect spot to rest under a tree whose leaves are made of silk. The tree hums a wordless song that seems to come from deep in the earth. As you lie down on the soft grass, you notice that the ground beneath you shapes itself perfectly to your body, like a mattress made just for you. Above you, the sky in dreamland is unlike any sky you have seen before. Instead of being black or dark blue, it shifts slowly through colors like purple velvet, deep green like forest shadows, and soft pink like the inside of a shell. Stars dance rather than twinkle, moving in slow circles and leaving trails of light behind them. As sleep begins to take you, you hear the gentle whistle of the sleepy train preparing for its return journey. But you know that you are exactly where you belong, in this place where dreams are born and peace lives in every breath. The last thing you remember is the feeling of floating, weightless and warm, surrounded by the soft sounds of night and the promise of beautiful dreams. In dreamland, time moves like honey, slow and sweet. Here, you can dream of anything you wish, and every dream becomes real for as long as you need it to be. And when morning comes, you will remember this place and know that it is always here, waiting for you, just a train ride away. Rest now, dream well. The sleepy train will bring you home safely when it is time to wake. The end, sleep peacefully. The cloud weaver's lullaby. High above the world, where the air is thin and clean, lives a gentle woman known as the cloud weaver. Her home is built on the softest cloud in the sky, and every night she works at her spinning wheel to create dreams for sleeping children below. Her fingers move like flowing water, spinning moonlight into thread and starlight into yarn. Tonight, the cloud weaver sits by her window, looking down at the world below. She can see every house, every bedroom, every child getting ready for sleep. Her heart fills with warmth as she watches lights turn off one by one, like flowers closing their petals at the end of the day. It is time to begin her work. The cloud weaver walks to her spinning wheel, which is made from silver moonbeams and decorated with tiny bells that chime like distant rain. She begins to spin, and as she does, clouds start to gather around her home. These are not ordinary clouds, but dream clouds, each one soft as silk and light as a whisper. As the wheel turns, the cloud weaver hums a melody that has no words, only feelings. It is a tune that speaks of safety and peace, of warm beds and gentle sleep. The melody floats down from the sky like invisible snow, settling over houses and gardens, bringing calm to everyone who hears it, even in their dreams. The first cloud she weaves tonight is pale blue like early morning sky. This cloud carries dreams of flying, of soaring gently over green fields and sparkling rivers. She shapes it carefully with her hands, making sure it is perfectly smooth and comfortable. Then she breathes on it softly, and the cloud begins to glow with its own quiet light. The second cloud is silver, like moonlight on water. This one holds dreams of underwater adventures, where friendly dolphins play games and seahorses dance in slow circles. Coral gardens sway gently in the current, and everything moves in perfect, peaceful rhythm. The cloud weaver adds tiny sparkles to this cloud, like bubbles rising to the surface. Next, she creates a cloud the color of sunset, orange and pink and gold, all mixed together. This cloud carries dreams of warm summer evenings, where fireflies blink like tiny stars, and gentle breezes carry the scent of blooming flowers. In these dreams, time moves slowly, and every moment feels like a gift. The cloud weaver works through the night, creating cloud after cloud, each one holding a different kind of peaceful dream. There are clouds full of dreams about friendly animals, about magical forests, where every tree tells stories, about cozy cabins, where hot chocolate never gets cold, and books read themselves aloud. As she works, other sky dwellers come to visit. The wind carries messages from children who have fallen asleep, little wishes for happy dreams and peaceful rest. The stars lean down to watch her work, their light making the dream clouds shimmer and dance. The moon moves closer, casting a gentle glow over everything, like a grandmother watching over her family. The cloud weaver never hurries. Each cloud must be perfect, soft enough to cradle the most delicate dream, strong enough to carry it safely through the night. She tests each cloud by lying down on it herself, making sure it shapes itself perfectly to whoever might rest upon it. Only when she is completely satisfied does she send the cloud on its way. One by one, the finished dream clouds drift down from her home in the sky. They float through bedroom windows that have been left open just a crack, settling gently over sleeping children like the softest blankets. Some clouds hover just above pillows, whispering their dreams directly into waiting ears. Others spread out to fill entire rooms with peaceful, sleepy magic. As the night grows deeper, the cloud weaver creates her most special cloud of all. This one is pure white, like fresh snow, and it glows with warmth instead of cold. This cloud does not carry dreams, but something even more precious. It carries deep, restful sleep, the kind that heals tired bodies and worried minds. She shapes this cloud with extra care, singing to it as she works, pouring all of her love and kindness into its soft, billowy form. When it is finished, She holds it close to her heart for a moment, blessing it with the power to bring peace to anyone who needs it most. The special white cloud begins its journey down to earth, moving slowly and carefully. It visits busy parents who work too hard, lonely old people who cannot sleep, and worried students who think too much. Wherever it goes, it brings the gift of rest, wrapping around tired souls like a hug from someone who cares. As dawn begins to touch the edges of the sky, the cloud weaver's work for the night is nearly done. She has one last task, the most important one of all. She creates a tiny cloud, no bigger than a pillow, just for you. This cloud knows exactly what kind of dreams you need tonight, what will make you smile in your sleep. Your special cloud drifts down through the darkness, finding its way to you like a letter written just for your heart. It settles over you gently, bringing dreams that are perfect for who you are. Dreams that will stay with you like favorite songs long after you wake up. The cloud weaver watches as her clouds reach their destinations all around the world. She sees peaceful smiles appear on sleeping faces, sees restless turning become still and calm. Her work is good work, important work, and it fills her with quiet happiness. As the first rays of sunlight begin to paint the sky, the cloud weaver puts away her spinning wheel and prepares for her own rest. She lies down on her soft cloud bed, surrounded by the leftover bits of dreams and starlight. The sun will warm her as she sleeps through the day, and when night comes again, she will wake refreshed and ready to weave new dreams. But the dreams she has already created will continue their gentle work. They will visit the same sleepers again and again, bringing peace and rest whenever it is needed. For the cloud weaver's dreams are not used up when they are dreamed. Instead, they grow stronger, spreading comfort like ripples on a quiet pond. Now your own dream cloud settles more deeply around you, and you feel yourself sinking into the most comfortable sleep. The cloud weaver's lullaby still echoes in the air, a wordless song that promises safety and peace. All is well in the world above and the world below, and sleep comes as naturally as breathing. Rest now, wrapped in clouds of dreams, held safe by the love of the cloud weaver, who works through the night so that you might sleep in peace. The end dreams sweetly. The night gardener, in a small town where the houses all had blue shutters and white picket fences, there lived an old man named Thomas, who had the most unusual job in the world. While everyone else slept, Thomas worked as the night gardener, tending to a secret garden that only appeared after midnight. Thomas had discovered the garden by accident 20 years ago. He had been walking his dog on a sleepless night when he noticed a gate that he was certain had never been there before. The gate was made of twisted branches and decorated with flowers that glowed softly in the darkness. His dog had walked right through the gate as if it were perfectly normal. Behind the gate lay the most beautiful garden Thomas had ever seen. Paths wound between beds of flowers that bloomed only in moonlight. Trees bore fruit that tasted like childhood memories. A small pond reflected not the night sky above, but scenes from the dreams of sleeping neighbors. Thomas realized he had found something magical. The garden had no owner, or perhaps it belonged to everyone, and no one at the same time. It simply existed, changing slightly each night, growing new wonders and gentle surprises. Thomas began visiting every evening, and soon he understood that the garden needed care, just like any other living thing. Every night at 11:30, Thomas would put on his soft canvas shoes and pick up his special watering can, the one that held moonlight instead of water. He would walk through the quiet streets, past windows where warm yellow light meant families were finishing their evening routines, past darker windows where sleep had already arrived. The garden gate appeared for Thomas at the exact moment the town clock struck midnight. He would step through, and immediately the busy thoughts of the day would fade away. Here, time moved differently. Here, everything grew at the pace of dreams. Thomas began his work with the worry flowers, strange plants that absorbed the anxious thoughts people carried with them into sleep. These flowers were always thirsty, drinking up fears about tomorrow and concerns about yesterday. As Thomas watered them with liquid moonlight, they would bloom into soft purple blossoms that released a scent like fresh lavender and warm milk. Next, he tended the memory roses. These climbed along a trellis that stretched higher than Thomas could reach, their blooms opening to reveal glimpses of happy moments from the lives of everyone in town. Birthday parties and wedding dances, first days of school, and quiet Sunday mornings. Thomas never looked too closely at these memories, understanding they were private things, but their gentle glow filled him with contentment. In the center of the garden grew the wishing tree, its branches heavy with silver leaves that whispered in languages Thomas did not recognize. At its base, new shoots appeared each night, each one representing a hope someone had carried to bed. Thomas watered these carefully, knowing that some wishes needed time to grow, while others were meant to bloom quickly and then fade away. The most delicate part of Thomas's work involved the dream lilies that floated on the surface of the garden pond. These flowers were transparent, like they were made of glass, and they held the actual dreams of the sleeping town. Thomas used a long-handled net to gently move the lilies, making sure each one had enough space and light to develop properly. Some dreams were wild and colorful, full of adventures and impossible things. Others were quiet and small, dreams of finding lost socks or remembering to buy milk. Thomas learned that both kinds were equally important. The spectacular dreams inspired people to reach for more in their waking lives, while the simple dreams provided comfort and connection to everyday joys. As Thomas worked, he was never alone. The garden attracted gentle night creatures who helped with the work. Rabbits with fur fur that sparkled like stars, would hop between the flower beds, their presence encouraging shy buds to open. Cats with eyes like amber jewels would walk along the garden walls, their purring creating vibrations that helped the deeper roots grow strong. Sometimes, barn owls would glide silently overhead, carrying messages between the garden and the dreams floating on the pond. They would dip their wings into the water, collecting dream fragments that had broken away, then fly them back to the sleeping minds where they belonged. The most magical visitors were the firefly shepherds, tiny beings no bigger than Thomas's thumb, who rode on the backs of glowing fireflies. They would guide lost dreams back to their proper dreamers and help untangle dreams that had gotten twisted together. Thomas could barely see them, but he would often find small gifts they had left behind. Flower petals arranged in perfect spirals, or dewdrops that contained tiny rainbows. As the night wore on, Thomas would make his final rounds through the garden. He would check that the comfort moss was growing well along the shadiest path, its soft green carpet providing a place for tired spirits to rest. He would ensure that the singing flowers were harmonizing properly, their quiet chorus creating a melody that drifted through bedroom windows on the night breeze. The last task was always the same. Thomas would sit on a small stone bench beside the dream lily pond and simply watch. He would observe how the dreams moved and changed, how some grew brighter while others faded peacefully away. He had learned that this watching was itself a kind of care, a way of honoring the secret life that happened while the world slept. As dawn approached, the garden would begin to fade. Not disappear exactly, but become thin and see-through, like morning mist. The flowers would fold their petals inward. The trees would pull their branches closer to their trunks, and the pond would become still as a mirror. Thomas would know it was time to leave. He would walk back through the gate, which would close gently behind him with a sound like wind chimes. By the time he reached his own house, the sun would be painting the sky soft pink and gold. Thomas would make himself a cup of tea and sit by his kitchen window, watching the town wake up. From his window, he could see people beginning their days. A woman would step outside to get her newspaper and pause, breathing deeply, as if the air held some special sweetness. A man would wave to his neighbor with unusual cheerfulness. Children would seem especially ready for adventure. Thomas knew that his work in the secret garden had touched all of their sleep, had helped their dreams grow rich and their rest grow deep. They would never know about the night gardener or the magical place where their dreams were tended with such care. But that was exactly as it should be. Some magic works best when it remains a secret, when it flows quietly through the world like an underground river, nourishing everything it touches without ever being seen. Thomas understood this, and it made his unusual work feel not strange, but perfectly right. And so, every night, the cycle began again. The garden waited patiently through the day, gathering strength from the sun it could not be seen under. Thomas would sleep peacefully in his own bed, dreaming dreams that were tended by someone else's careful hands. And when midnight came, he would rise once more to tend the secret garden where all dreams learned to bloom. The end. Captain Marina's evening voyage. Captain Marina had the smallest boat in the harbor, painted sea green with white trim, and named the Gentle Current. Unlike the other captains who sailed during the busy daylight hours, Marina preferred to take her passengers on evening voyages when the ocean was calm and the world grew quiet. Every evening at sunset, Marina would prepare her boat for the night's journey. She would light the small lanterns that lined the deck, each one casting a warm golden glow. She would arrange soft cushions on the wooden benches and fill a thermos with hot tea that tasted like chamomile and honey. The boat would rock gently in the harbor, ready for whoever might need a peaceful journey across the water. Tonight, Marina's passengers were an elderly couple named Rose and Henry, who had been married for 50 years. They climbed aboard slowly, Rose carrying a small bag with their evening tea, Henry helping her settle onto the cushioned bench. They had taken this same journey with Marina many times before, always on nights when the world felt too busy, and they needed to remember what peace felt like. Marina untied the ropes that held the Gentle Current to the dock and started the quiet electric motor that barely made more sound than a cat's purr. The boat glided away from the harbor lights, moving slowly toward the open water where the sky met the sea in a perfect line. As they sailed, the last light of day painted the water in shades of gold and pink. Small waves lapped against the sides of the boat with a rhythm like a lullaby. Rose and Henry sat close together, sharing a blanket Marina had woven from the softest wool, while Marina stood at the wheel, guiding them along a route she knew by heart. The first stop on Marina's evening voyage was always the bay of floating flowers. Here, water lilies grew in the shallows, their white petals glowing in the twilight. The flowers released a gentle fragrance that mixed with the salt air, creating a scent that reminded everyone who smelled it of summer evenings and childhood wishes. Marina would slow the boat to barely moving, letting the gentle current drift among the lily pads. Sometimes seals would surface nearby, their dark eyes curious and kind. They would watch the boat pass with no fear, as if they knew that Marina and her passengers were friends to all sea creatures. Tonight, a family of dolphins appeared alongside the boat. They swam slowly, matching the boat's gentle pace, their sleek bodies cutting through the water without a splash. The dolphins seemed to understand that this was not a time for playing or jumping, but for quiet companionship. They stayed with the gentle current for nearly an hour, breathing in rhythm with the soft waves. As full darkness settled over the water, Marina guided the boat toward her favorite destination, a small island that appeared only at high tide. The island had no name on any map, but Marina called it Driftwood Beach because its shores were lined with smooth pieces of wood that had been polished by years of gentle waves. On Driftwood Beach, Marina would anchor the boat in the shallow water and help her passengers step onto the soft sand. The beach was warm even at night, heated by the sun it had absorbed during the day. Rose and Henry would walk slowly along the water's edge, collecting shells and smooth stones, while Marina prepared a small picnic on a piece of driftwood that served as their table. The picnic was always the same and always perfect. Marina would serve tea from her thermos, along with crackers and soft cheese, and small cookies that tasted like vanilla and sea salt. They would eat in comfortable silence, listening to the gentle sound of waves meeting shore, watching stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Sometimes other night travelers would visit the island. Sea turtles would emerge from the water to rest on the warm sand, their ancient eyes peaceful and wise. Occasionally, a whale would surface far offshore, its breath creating a small fountain of water that caught the moonlight. These visitors never stayed long, but their presence added to the magic of the evening. After their meal, Marina would tell stories about the sea. She spoke of mermaids who collected lost sailor songs and kept them in underwater gardens. She described islands that moved with the tides, appearing in different places each night. She told of lighthouses run by old women who baked bread for passing ships and left loaves floating in wooden boxes for hungry travelers to find. Rose and Henry would listen to these stories with the wonder of children, even though they had heard many of them before. There was something about Marina's gentle voice mixing with the sound of the waves that made every story feel new and magical, like hearing a favorite song played by someone who truly loved the music. As the night grew deeper, Marina would guide her passengers back to the gentle current. The boat would rock them gently as they settled back onto their cushions, now wrapped in blankets that smelled like ocean air and peace. Marina would start the quiet motor, and they would begin the journey back toward the harbor. The return trip always took a different route. Marina would navigate by the stars, following paths across the water that existed only in her memory and her heart. Sometimes they would pass through channels between small islands where night-blooming flowers grew down to the water's edge. Other times, they would sail across open water where the moon painted a silver road on the waves. On this particular night, they encountered something special. A group of jellyfish, their bodies transparent and glowing with soft blue light, drifted past the boat like living lanterns. They moved without hurry, pulsing gently as they traveled their own mysterious journey through the dark water. Marina stopped the motor, and the gentle current drifted silently among the glowing creatures. Rose reached out her hand toward the water, not to touch the jellyfish, but simply to be closer to their gentle light. Henry put his arm around his wife's shoulders, and they watched together as dozens of the creatures floated past, each one a small miracle of light and life. Marina smiled, knowing that this was exactly the kind of moment her evening voyages were meant to create. As the harbor lights came into view, Marina felt the familiar satisfaction of another peaceful journey completed. She could see that Rose and Henry were both drowsy now, lulled by the gentle motion of the boat and the rhythm of the waves. Their faces looked younger somehow, softened by the magic of their time on the water. Marina guided the gentle current back to its berth at the dock, tying the ropes with practiced hands. She helped Rose and Henry step carefully onto the solid pier, making sure they had their bag and their blanket. They thanked her quietly, as they always did, with hugs that conveyed more gratitude than words ever could. After her passengers had walked slowly up the pier toward their car, Marina remained on her boat for a few more minutes. She would tidy up the cushions and turn off the lanterns, preparing the gentle current for tomorrow night's voyage. But first, she would sit quietly on the deck, listening to the water lap against the boat's hull and watching the last stars reflect on the harbor's surface. Marina knew that her work was important, even though it was simple. In a world full of noise and hurry, she provided something that everyone needed, but few knew how to find. A chance to move slowly, to breathe deeply, to remember that peace was always available to those who knew where to look for it. Every evening, someone would need what Marina offered. Sometimes it was couples like Rose and Henry, who had been together so long they moved like one person. Sometimes it was lonely travelers who needed to remember they were connected to something larger than themselves. Sometimes it was families with small children who had never seen the ocean at night, but always the sea was there, patient and eternal, ready to rock tired souls into a state of deep calm. Marina was simply the bridge between the people who needed peace and the ancient, endless peace of the water itself. As Marina finally locked up the gentle current for the night, she could already imagine tomorrow's voyage. The boat would be ready, the lanterns would glow, and somewhere in the world, people would be drawn to the harbor at sunset, seeking the kind of peace that could only be found on a gentle journey across quiet water. The end, the rain reader, deep in the pine forest, where the trees grew so tall they seemed to brush the clouds, stood a small cabin with a red door and windows that glowed like amber jewels. The cabin belonged to an old woman named Esther, who had lived there for 30 years and who possessed the most unusual talent in the world. Esther could read the rain. On this particular evening, dark clouds had been gathering since afternoon, and now the first drops were beginning to fall on the cabin's tin roof. Esther smiled as she heard the gentle tapping above her head. She put down her knitting and walked to the window, pressing her palm against the cool glass and listening carefully to the rhythm of the raindrops. Esther had discovered her gift by accident many years ago during a thunderstorm that had lasted 3 days. Trapped inside her cabin with nothing to do but listen, she had begun to notice that the rain seemed to be speaking to her. Different rhythms meant different things. The quick patter of light rain told stories of forest animals finding shelter. The steady drumming of a heavy downpour carried news from distant places. Tonight, as Esther listened to the rain beginning to fall in earnest, she could hear that this would be a storytelling rain. These were her favorite kind, gentle and steady, lasting for hours, with each drop carrying a piece of a larger tale that would unfold throughout the evening. Esther made herself a cup of tea, using water from the well and herbs from her garden. She added honey that she had traded for with the beekeeper who lived in the valley below. Then she settled into her favorite armchair, a soft old thing covered in quilts her grandmother had made, and prepared to listen to what the rain had to tell her. The first story the rain told was about a family of deer who lived near the old oak tree at the edge of the meadow. The mother deer had been teaching her twin fawns how to find the sweetest grass and the clearest water. As the rain began to fall, the deer family had taken shelter under the oak's broad branches. The fawns curled up against their mother's warm sides while she kept watch through the gentle storm. Esther could picture them perfectly as the rain tapped out their story on her roof. She had seen this deer family many times during her walks through the forest, and the rain's rhythm seemed to match the way the fawns would bound through the meadow, all long legs and curious energy. As the evening wore on, the rain's story shifted. Now it told of the old bear who lived in the cave on the mountainside. The bear had spent the day gathering late berries and preparing for the long winter ahead. When the rain started, he had returned to his cave and was now sitting at the entrance, watching the water create small rivers down the mountain paths. The bear enjoyed rainy evenings, finding them peaceful and full of the earth's own music. Esther nodded as she listened to this part of the story. She had met the bear twice, both times by the stream that ran behind her cabin. He was a gentle giant who seemed as interested in watching her as she was in watching him. They had developed a respectful friendship based on mutual curiosity and shared love of the forest's quiet moments. The rain continued its storytelling, and now Esther heard about the family of raccoons who had discovered a hollow log that made the perfect boat. The young raccoons had been using it to float down the stream, while their parents watched nervously from the bank. When the rain began, the raccoon children had reluctantly abandoned their game and followed their parents to the dry shelter of an old barn foundation hidden among the ferns. Esther laughed softly as the rain shared this tale. She could imagine the raccoon parents trying to convince their adventurous children that playtime was over, at least until the storm passed. Raccoons were clever creatures, and she had often watched them solve problems with the kind of intelligence that made her think they understood far more about the world than most people realized. As the night deepened, the rain's voice grew softer, and its stories became more mysterious. It told of the owl who lived in the tallest pine, and how she could see for miles, even in the darkest storms. Tonight, the owl was watching over all the forest creatures, making sure everyone had found safe shelter. Her call drifted through the rain like a gentle blessing, a sound that promised safety to all who heard it. Esther had heard this owl many times, and the sound never failed to bring her comfort. There was something ancient and wise in the owl's voice, as if she carried the memory of every storm that had ever passed through these woods, and knew with certainty that this one too would pass, leaving the forest refreshed and renewed. The rain then whispered the story of the fireflies who lived near the pond at the bottom of the hill. Even though rain made flying difficult, they had gathered under the large mushrooms that grew around the water's edge. Their lights flickered softly in the shelter, creating a fairy-like glow that reflected on the rain-dimpled surface of the pond. They would wait patiently for the storm to end, knowing that tomorrow night they would dance again among the cattails and water lilies. As Esther listened to story after story, she felt herself becoming part of the larger tale the rain was telling. It was a story about how all living things in the forest were connected, how each creature's small drama was part of a bigger symphony of life that played out every day and every night, in sunshine and in storms. The rain told her about the field mice who had gathered in their underground tunnels, sharing seeds they had collected during the sunny days. It spoke of the hedgehog who had curled up in his burrow, lined with soft moss and fallen leaves. It described the family of quail who had found shelter under a fallen log, huddled together with their feathers fluffed against the cool air. Each story flowed into the next, creating a tapestry of forest life that was both peaceful and full of gentle activity. Esther realized that what she had thought of as a quiet, empty forest was actually bustling with small communities, each one with its own rhythms and concerns, its own joys and challenges. As midnight approached, the rain stories began to wind down. It told of how the earthworms were celebrating underground, grateful for the moisture that made their tunnels soft and easy to navigate. It spoke of the spider who had reinforced her web just before the storm and was now sitting safely in the center, feeling proud of her preparation and planning. The final story the rain shared was about Esther herself. It described how she sat in her cozy cabin, surrounded by the warmth of lamplight and the comfort of her quilts, listening with a heart full of wonder to the tales that fell from the sky. The rain spoke of how Esther's gift for listening made her a bridge between the human world and the world of the forest, someone who could understand and appreciate the connections that linked all living things. As the rain's voice grew quieter and quieter, Esther felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over her. She was grateful for her small cabin that kept her warm and dry. She was grateful for her unusual gift that allowed her to hear the stories others might miss. Most of all, she was grateful to be part of this larger community of forest dwellers, each one playing their part in the endless, gentle story of life in the woods. The rain tapered off to the softest whisper, and then to silence. Esther remained in her chair for a long moment, holding onto the peace that the evening's stories had brought her. Outside, she could hear the forest settling into its after-rain quiet, with only the occasional drip from the eaves and the distant call of the wise old owl. Esther rose from her chair and walked to the window one more time. The clouds were beginning to part, revealing patches of star-filled sky. Tomorrow would be clear and bright, perfect for a walk through the forest to visit some of the places and creatures the rain had told her about. But tonight, she would carry the rain stories with her into sleep, dreaming of deer families and bear caves, of raccoon adventures and firefly lights, of all the small, perfect dramas that played out every day in the world just outside her red door. Esther turned off her lamp and made her way to her bedroom, where a quilt made by her own hands waited to wrap her in warmth. As she settled into bed, she could still hear the faint dripping from the eaves, like the last few words of a story being whispered into the night. The end